This is the Mickey Miles and More podcast, your one stop for information on Disney races, Disney vacations, Disney theme parks, and more. Now, here are your hosts for the Mickey Miles and More podcast, Michelle Scribner-McLean, Chris Eliopoulos, and Mike Scopa.
Welcome home, Milers, and welcome back to another episode of Mickey Miles and More, a podcast where three friends talk about their passion for the Disney parks. I'm Chris Eliopoulos, and with me, as always, is Dr. Michelle Scribner-McLean. Welcome back, Michelle.
Hello, Christopher. I actually get to see you in person.
I know.
Yay.
And it's been a while since we've been on the show, but we got to see each other a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It was
in Florida.
Really nice. Socially distanced. It was very, very nice and safe.
Yeah.
I am going to give a shout out before we even start this whole discussion to the Walt Disney World cast members who were awesome. They were really, really amazing. We spent, as you'll hear, a prolonged time in Florida, and both at Walt Disney World, at Walt Disney World Vero Beach, and also at Disney Springs, where not everybody's a Disney cast member. Everybody was absolutely fantastic. Terrific.
Yeah, I second it. It was interesting. After I returned home from my trip, I got a survey from the Disney parks. And, you know, usually with these surveys, you can tell they're kind of leading towards something. And it was interesting, of all the things we saw and all the questions and issues that we may have come across, the thing they seem to be interested in is cast member capabilities and what we thought of them, good, bad, indifferent. They were sort of focusing on them. And I made sure to say that every single time our experience with all the cast members was outstanding. A lot of people forget that they had nothing to do with any of the Disney choices or the COVID pandemic. And so they were doing the best they could. And so I always gave them high marks, so shout out to them. And finally with us is always the charming, handsome, accented
Debonair.
Michael Scopa. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Chris. It was great seeing you. And I want to further what Michelle said. I want to second her shout outs and saying
It would be third, because Chris already.
the third, I guess. Okay. So, with the cast members, with all the issues going on down there, they tried as best as they could to make everyone's stay as pleasant as possible. And I want to specifically call out one particular person. He's not a cast member, but he made us feel safe, and he was very kind to us. And he's one of the managers of Splitsville. His name is Rob Carpenter, and he came by and he was talking to us about how he tries to keep all his customers safe and his staff safe. And I just want to give a shout out to him. Puts in a lot of work. He makes that restaurant. He's part of the infrastructure there that makes that restaurant work so smoothly. And Michelle and I really, really love Splitsville, and he's one of the reasons why. So thank you, Rob Carpenter, wherever you are.
Excellent. So we're going to start off the show discussing basically it's going to be a trip report for all of us. But I want to preface by saying that we actually all cut our vacations short and came home early for different reasons. This is not going to be a bashing Disney episode, but more of a why did we do what we did and what we saw and sort of the good and the bad and the ugly. I'm the ugly part, so that's where that comes from. I think Michelle's the good, Mike's the bad, I'm the ugly. But Mike, in general, I think the overlying thing was that we felt like this wasn't the experience we were used to. Was that your feeling about your trip?
I think that we all had expectations. We all knew that due to COVID and due to the slow reopening of everything down there, that things would not be as they have been in the past. There were some good surprises. There were some not so good surprises. But I think the overall reason that we cut our stay short was because things were going on in Florida regarding COVID and positivity rates that were just kind of nerve-wracking. And so for that particular reason, we cut our trip short. Michelle, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that Actually, Chris, I think one of your kids, you told me, actually said something that just sort of captured what I felt. I had a great time in so many ways. I would say I changed my expectations. It wasn't what I expected, and I did have some wonderful times, but it wasn't as magical as I had hoped. And I don't know if that's a buildup of not going there for a year, expecting there to be rainbows and unicorns and dancing Mickeys. There were some really, really cool things that I think Disney has done, but I just felt at pretty much every turn that things were just not what I expected. So, which, I guess logically that would make sense that things weren't going to be the same, but it was just like a different experience. So, what about you?
Yeah, the issue. Well, we definitely. I had anxiety over the COVID stuff and mask wearing. I felt things are going to change week by week. While we were down there, they changed the rule from masks indoors and outdoor queues to you didn't need to wear because people were getting overheated, so they got rid of masks in outdoor queues and on outdoor rides, which made me a bit nervous. We've talked off the air about the idea that if this virus goes around, even if you're vaccinated, it could mutate and get worse. And I don't want to see that happen. So I was getting very upset seeing people in line not wearing masks and then fully knowing that they were coming up to a cast member and lifting those masks back up and nobody was sort of dealing with that. That was a thing that was going on, but it caused anxiety. I wasn't relaxing. I couldn't relax at the parks. There was some great stuff. Like, even though they didn't have fast passes, the amount of people there was so low. We were able to get on so many attractions so quickly and multiple times. Did you not feel that way?
No, the opposite.
Really?
I didn't go on so many things because
Really?
the lines were so long.
See, week to week, I feel like it changed.
Yeah, no, there were things. I didn't go on Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, all the mountains. I can't tell you the number of things that I did not, because I'm not willing to wait in line for an hour, even at night. Wow. Like, no. But
it must have changed from the time that you left and the time that we were there, because our first day we got to the parks at 11 o'clock and hit all 3 mountains.
Wow.
And we were by 2 o'clock we were done. Like, we had hit everything.
No, but you know what? I think that because I couldn't go on all the attractions or things were a little more crowded than I thought, I found other things to do that were okay. So they it wasn't what I expected, but one of the things we did was, staying at Bay Lake Towers. Now, we stayed at 8 different places. I don't know the whole time. We were at Bay Lake Towers and we walked the new path to the Grand Floridian and found a bar that we never knew about before. And so we watched the electrical water pageant, 4 times? Like, 4 every single night we watched that. So it was like, this is really, so we weren't spending our time making sure that we went on the attractions, but pretty much the whole time we were there, the ride lines are really long. And I have to say, Chris, that I was on Mike's back not to text you things that would get you upset about your upcoming trip, because I kept on saying, he has a vacation coming, don't get him stressed out. But
what was funny is that Mike was telling me stuff that was going on before I got down there, and you were sort of being, it really was funny. It was like you were the positive and he was the negative.
The little angels on your shoulders, the angel and the devil.
I was very careful.
And then I would turn to my wife and said, I don't know if we're gonna have a really good time or a really lousy time, because it seems like they're having 2 different vacations. I don't know which one they're having. But it's funny. Besides that, I think the biggest thing for us that caused us to want to cut it short was a lot of the experiences weren't what we expected them to be. Things weren't available. Things were closed. And, I have to understand that. And there were a lot of things with our hotel that we were expecting. Like, okay, I'm going to sound like a totally privileged jerk, but we missed our vacation last year. We saved up. We decided to go for 2 weeks, and we stayed at the Yacht Club. And, I'm not talking about a DVC. I'm not talking about All-Star Sports. This is a place that cost me $600 a night. And, hey, that's the price of a deluxe. But, we didn't get room service. You would have to call to get new towels. You'd have to lay them outside. And for most people, it's fine. And normally, I would have been fine if I were staying at a moderate or a value. But there were certain things that were an expectation about a trip like this and the cost. And I think a lot of what I had a problem with was we were paying full price and more, and not getting that full experience in many ways.
Even not paying half of that, less than half of that at the Dolphin, which was one of our weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We had to call 4 times to get our trash picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Towels. We were sneaking into the into the utility room to get towels. Yeah. They were very pleasant. Hey, my trash is overflowing again. Can you come? Can you come and get it? That wasn't our experience when we were at Old Key West for 2 weeks, where they came every day, and we had Manny and Jean, who were wonderful and came every day. But I agree with you. There's like a balance of, I don't want somebody in the room because of COVID, but yikes.
Yeah. Well,
what are you paying for if you're paying $600?
And what's interesting is they had like a little stand in there that was basically outlining what they did between guests in terms of cleanliness, what they were going to be doing, and how clean they were going to keep this place. And so, but when we were in our room, like there were so many places like covered in dust. And you're going,
and that was the second room, right? You forgot to talk about that.
Well, when we first checked in, we had a water view in yacht, which is the most expensive. Like, I mean, I'm not, I'm trying not to sound boastful, but we really were trying to make. I've been working like a maniac, and we really wanted to have a nice vacation where we felt pampered and taken care of. And so we had the water view, and we get to the room. Our bands didn't work, so I had to go all the way back down to get them fixed again. We come back. The guy brings us into the room. We go, oh, it's lovely. We open up the curtains, and there were 3 cherry pickers parked right in front of our room. We couldn't see any water, much less anything beyond the cherry pickers, because they're redoing the facade of the yacht club. Again, cast members, lovely, called down there and said, this is not what we're paying for. And they quickly moved us to a new room, which had a wonderful, beautiful view. So that was great. But, like I said, like it's covered in dust. When they came in, all they did was wipe down the floor and swap out the towels. And they would only do that every couple of days, and they wouldn't really tell you when they were coming. They just sort of just show up. So that was kind of weird. We loved going to the Cruise Cup, because it was like a little, at the end of the night, you go to a park, you come home and maybe have a nightcap, or you have a little snack. My kids would always have a snack. Over at Cruise Cup, they now only have the Yachtsman Steakhouse menu available. So we weren't looking to pay $50 for a steak in a bar setting. If we were going to do that, we'd just go to the yacht club, right? I mean, that's the thing. We wanted like a little salad, or, my kids wanted chicken nuggets or something. So we couldn't do that. And plus they were closing at like 10 o'clock at night. So, with 22-year-olds at 10 o'clock, that's when they get started. And so it was kind of like that across the parks and stuff, where everything sort of seemed not fully functional, not fully running. It was just a little bit short. Did you feel that too? Or was that just me and my over analyzing everything?
I think what you're speaking to, Chris, is one of the reasons why a lot of the expectations weren't met. And I think it comes down to the reduced staffing due to the closure last year, and a lot of the cast members were laid off, and some of them found better jobs, so that when the reopening took place, they could not open everything. They could not offer the same kind of level of service as in the past. And that includes things like lounges and restaurants, which probably could not operate on the same operating hours schedule because they didn't have that many people. And maybe if you have a restaurant or a lounge that is reduced by 40%, then you can't stay open till midnight or 1 o'clock. You have to close at 10 because you just don't have enough people. I think we've seen that. We saw that a lot during our stay. We saw a lot of cast members training for their ears. How many are earning their ears? Michelle, we saw a lot, specifically in restaurants where we wanted to use our tables in Wonderland, and they had no idea what that was, and we had to call the manager over and explain, oh yes, we do accept it. So I think what you were experiencing was a byproduct, if you want to call it a byproduct, of the reduced staffing. And I think that contributed a lot to the quote disappointment that a lot of guests may have felt this summer, because this place wasn't open, that place wasn't open to the regular hours. This place is now offering Yachtsman Steakhouse menu when all I wanted was, truffle French fries and a beer or whatever. So I think that contributed a lot to what was going on. When we first got down there, I don't know if you remember this, Michelle, we got down there and a lot of places weren't open. Tangerine Cafe comes to mind, but a lot of these small eateries, kiosks, stuff like, they weren't open. And then gradually, as these new cast members came online, they were able to do that. But I think that, to me, was the main reason why a lot of the things that we normally would experience, we weren't able to experience.
Yeah, so like if you add up these little disappointments every day, oh,
Well, that was
it just
exactly
looks
it.
like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, oh, look at the way Epcot looks now. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not really fun anymore.
Right.
I went into Sunshine Seasons in the Lands. I almost got tackled. I just wanted to see what was available. You can't go in here. Like you have to order
We
mobile
just wanted
ordering.
a,
Like I just
wanted a
wanna
bottle of
see-
water.
I
Yeah.
just like I
Yeah.
want a bottle of water. Like there's like all these little, like, I don't know, Mike would call them hits. All these little hits happened
Right.
that where it was just like,
Yeah. And what you just said triggered another thought, that when they quote reopened, they really didn't reopen. They sort of partially reopened, because there were a lot of conditions that were established due to the
with
the pandemic.
norms and protocols
Yeah,
that you have to learn
there
again.
there were no norms. Every place was different. Things that we were used to, you couldn't do. And I think that says that when you have something like a pandemic, maybe it's best not to reopen until you can reopen at 100%.
Yeah. The thing about the norms too, I think is important, because there were times like going on the Skyliner at the beginning where they were saying, oh, only one party per car. And then it turned into, oh, well, unless it's crowded, then it's going to be more people per car. And I had an interaction with a cast member where we went on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and 2 days in a row, or did we go twice in one day? I can't remember. But the first time they said, oh no, we're only putting one family per row. And the second time they tried to put us with another couple. And I said, hey, what about social distancing? And the guy went, this is the only time, honestly, in the whole trip, I thought, oh, cast members, I'm stressing him out. But he went like, okay, if the guests insist, then we don't do it. But then after they were loaded, he said, oh, I know it's important to you and it's okay. He kind of backpedaled. But so like what I'm saying is, like, the protocols would change and you didn't know like what was happening or when it was, what it was going to be. And that added to my stress because I didn't know what to expect if it was like the same all over.
I had a cast member, friend of mine, who a long time ago said, if you're ever in Walt Disney World or Disneyland, and you have an issue, if you begin to talk with a cast member and you think you have an issue, all you need to do is stare for about 2 or 3 seconds at his or her badge and then look back at her, and all of a sudden their disposition will change because they think, they're looking at my name and they're going to report me.
Look, they're making $15 an hour. They're doing what they're told. I'm not there to make anybody's life miserable, but I wanted to make sure that I was safe and understood the rules because I'm a rule follower.
But I
didn't want to get into a car where, if I had a chance.
But I think they're frustrated too. They were frustrated by not knowing, because it did. It seemed like location to location, park to park, the rules were different all throughout, and they changed day to day. That was the thing that like, it was weird. It was like you'd go in there one day and there was this rule that you had to, do this, and then the next day you go back to the park and it's totally different. So, but instead of bashing right now, Michelle, one of the things I did love, and I'm sure you did too, was the security checks and how quickly you're able to enter the parks now.
Oh, yeah. I actually went and bought some of the stock in that company, which is called Evolve Technologies. Not that I get anything from them, but they're actually from Massachusetts. But I thought that was fabulous. Like you walk through, I never had any problem walking through, even with my umbrella or anything like that. And what I was really, really happy with is that Disney Springs to me seemed to be a weak security link. I know nothing about security, but it just seemed to be a place that anybody could go with thousands of people, and it could be a real scary situation. Well, now you walk in and you're only scanned I would say 10% of the people that I saw beeped and they check your bag, but you just walk right in. It's really,
just
really
one,
nice.
one after the other.
In
You
the
just walk
parks,
right
too.
through. Yeah. It's definitely in the parks. And that was great because it used to. Oh, you'd go in and they'd just be checking everybody's bags, and they'd go through every
You always
zipper.
got pulled over too, right?
always. But I'm sure, Mike, you were just happy to just be able to just scoot right through, right?
Yeah, like Michelle said, one of the things that, in general, that I was really impressed with was that this technology that Michelle speaks of with the scanning, and I have to say also with the way that you use your annual pass or your ticket to enter the parks.
On your Apple Watch.
I don't recall. I think I recall once there was maybe a little bit of a line at Epcot through the front. I think we went. Oh, we came off the monorail, and by a line at the turnstile, I mean like there were two people in front of me, not these huge long lines that we've seen in the past. So that's a big improvement. The way that you scan it is right through really fast, and maybe 10%, and then boom, right through.
Contactless. Mike will tell you pretty much every single time we've gone through with Magic Band, I've had a problem.
Yeah.
We've had to call a cast member. I had zero problems with
Interesting.
and I know you had a different experience with your
it was
Apple
the
Watch.
first time in, it somehow got screwed up, and luckily I brought my Magic Bands as backup, so we had them, so there wasn't a big issue. But my family, I kept going with my Apple Watch. It worked perfectly from that moment forward, but the rest of the family stuck with the bands for now, which is fine. It's going to change again when we start talking about Genie and Genie Plus and all that stuff. They're going to
So
change.
for people who don't know, it comes up as a QR code in your wallet on your watch, and you just touch it to Mickey the way you would with your Magic Band, and you go through. You don't have to do your finger. So that kind of, to me, I was always wondering, like, why couldn't I just give it to somebody else and have them use my watch? But
well, what's interesting is that they also didn't do the finger checks when I was there, and I've heard they've just gone back to doing them.
Really?
And what was interesting was what happened on my first trip when I scanned in. For some reason, even though I didn't have them on my watch, I scanned in as my wife. And then when she went to go scan, they're like, well, she already checked in. And I'm like, oh, wait. So that kind of got screwed up. But once we have it all figured out, it was golden. So
they figured it out for you right there.
They literally just, we readjusted it for some reason, and they were like, you're good. There was a manager who happened to be right at that kiosk just as we pulled in, so we had no problems after that. But the other interesting thing for me that at first I was a little resistant to but embraced was the mobile ordering system they've got going on. Mike, did you enjoy the fact that you could just order ahead of time and walk up and get it, or was this something that you were like the technophobe and you're just screaming and ranting that you don't want to do that?
No, I think that this pretty much falls under the same category as the screening and the getting into the parks with the technology that is being used the way it should be used, because in both cases in both cases you avoided lines, you avoided social distance. I mean, you avoided a crowded line, and it was ready. We used it in the studios, I think, and it was packed. We all said, we really didn't schedule anything to eat, and boom, we were able to get the order in right away. So I think that it helps again with saving people time, and I think that when you save guests time, I think that's a good thing. And
Mike doesn't have a choice to be a technophobe because I handle all the technology stuff. So, and then I make it work, and he says, "Oh, it's lovely."
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is and the cast members seem to be pushing it a bit more.
Yes.
And a lot of it may be right now because they're trying to keep the aisles clear and they're trying to keep as many people out and not crowding the place. But we had gone to Restaurantosaurus, whatever. And we started to walk in because we weren't sure what was on the menu. And the cast member at the front just said, "Hey, look, if you're going to go wait online, it's going to be about a half an hour before you get your food. If you step outside and mobile order, you'll have it in 10 minutes. I went, all right. And so that was sort of the moment, like it was like partway through, it was maybe our third or fourth day. I had been reluctantly using it. And at that point, we ordered the food. You know, my kids are quick. We went through it all. We ordered it. We sat down. And then like a couple minutes later, it was there and we were ready to go. And I was like, you know what? That's great. I could do this for almost every meal that, you know, you're doing quick service. The only thing is I wonder, it gives you options to fix things or change things, but I think people with special dietary needs, it might not always work well. Right. But I felt like it was a good way to go, and I'm going to use it more as we go on. I think that's the way to go. What about you, Michelle?
You know, we don't eat a lot of quick serve. We only did it once. It worked beautifully. It was like super, super fast. We walked right up to we went to
Pizza Planet.
I can't say too little about that food. That wasn't great. Yeah. But the technology worked great. So we walked right up. They said go to line 2 is there. Boom, boom, boom. Yep. There were clean seats and they were clean. Them cleaning. That was fine.
Yeah.
We mostly don't go to. I think if we folks with us, we probably.
I will say though, speaking of food and stuff, and as I vamp while because you're fading in and out with your Wi-Fi connection, but the one thing I will also mention that those things that we are a little less than, if you're looking to go to the Fixin' bar, there is no Fixin' at the Fixin' bars. They kind of ditch those. So like, you know, you'd order a hamburger and yeah.
It's like a buffet.
Yeah, it's nothing there. Basically, they just like kind of lay out napkins or something on the trays. They didn't really have. I mean, they may be bringing them back. I think I heard they were kind of going back in Crystal Palace. Are they starting to do?
Didn't we hear there were buffets, Mike?
Buffets coming back.
Boma, I believe, is open.
So
as a buffet.
As a buffet, I think so. Yeah.
So maybe they're going to start bringing back the Fixins at the Fixins bar.
But I think it's too early for that. I really do.
I would think so as well. But it was one of those things that makes sense, and it's not Disney's fault. And so and I'm not faulting them. They're doing the smart thing. They're not having it laying out there for people to sneeze on or whatever they're doing. But so that worked well. So I'll tell you a quick story, which will lead us into the next subject, which is that so I woke up too late one morning to hit Rise of the Resistance. And so we were heading out to the park, and we were there around 1:00, and I was able to snag a whatever what do they call it when you
boarding
get on
group.
A boarding group.
Yeah.
But I didn't know when it was going to be. I think it was like 1:16. It was one of those. It was that one where like if we sell out everywhere, you can finally come on. You can tell out everybody else. And they were like on 36 and mine was like 116. So I said, it's not going to happen, but at least I knew it worked. And so we had spent some time in Hollywood Studios, and then we went over to Epcot, hung out there, and we had gotten the ping that our boarding party was ready. We had an hour to get to Rise of the Resistance. It was probably like 7:00. So my sons had never been on the Skyliner before, so they wanted to take that route across. So I said, why not? I mean, what's to lose? It'll be fun. We could sit in the Skyliner and go. And if you're not fully aware, Skyliner will take you from Epcot. It will go over to the Riviera and then over to what's the next one? Caribbean Beach. And then you get off and you get on to the Skyliner that takes you to Hollywood Studios. So we did great. We got all the way there, Caribbean Beach. We got on the Skyliner, and like partway there, it just stopped and stopped and we were getting a little nervous because we were like, oh God, are we going to be able to move in time? Are we going to get to Hollywood Studios in time to get onto the ride? Because I think the ride was it closed out 10 minutes before the close of the park. So if the park closed at 9, it was like 8:50 was the cutoff time.
Wow.
So we were getting a little nervous. It was maybe around 8:20, 30, something like that. So we're like, oh no. And my wife started to get a little agoraphobic. No, is it what's
Yeah.
height? Is height agoraphobic?
Oh, acrophobic.
Acrophobic.
Acrophobic, yeah.
Whatever.
Fear of heights, yeah.
She's scared of heights. So it kind of freaked her a little bit out that we were there for like 10 minutes hanging there. My kids were having a ball. They were just like, whatever, but we wanted to get to the park.
Hey, we're swinging it back and forth.
Yeah, right. But it did start moving and we were able to get there and we got onto the ride and we shared the entire ride with 2 people. That was
Wow.
it. So we were able to go
that's
in.
awesome.
Yeah, it was like that was the best way for that. It was the first time they were on Rise of the Resistance. It was the best first experience. Like anything else will be a letdown when you have more people.
Right.
But they really truly enjoyed the Skyliner and wanted to go back on. Did you guys enjoy the Skyliner while you were there?
Yeah, I think we used it a lot.
Yeah, we actually spent one day where we just rode the Skyliner everywhere and just walked around different resorts.
Yeah,
this was like another
let's walk around the
wasn't what we
Caribbean.
expected, but
Let's walk
we just-
around
yeah,
Riviera.
We
Not
took
the
the
Riviera.
Skyliner and we
The
walked
Caribbean,
around
yeah.
different places.
Yeah. So yeah, we thought it was. I think that it's a.
I was not a fan. I thought this is really like visually, it's like
It was,
pollution for my eyes.
yeah.
The LA Skyliners, but
and-
I've converted. I've usually my first impression sticks, but I actually really like the Skyliners.
everybody was concerned about them being too hot, but I thought that the way that they were designed, the air just flowed through, and it was really. And we were there for some very warm days, so
Yeah.
I thought it was good. The only issue, and maybe we'll talk about this on another show, is the Skyliner can create a log jam, and we'll talk about that
Yeah.
on another
Yeah.
show.
And selfishly, the international gateway is just not
On another show. we'll
Yeah.
talk about that,
Yeah.
not what
Yeah.
it used to be.
Because that's like a 20-minute story.
Well, I think we have enough for the first one. We kind of covered a lot of ground, but there's so much more that we want to talk about. So I think we're going to have shows for weeks to come. So other than that, any other final thoughts about your trip? Were you happy to be home, or was it just sort of bittersweet? I mean, you guys were there for how long? 2 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 months. I would not personally do a vacation where I was working for a month of the time.
Right.
I ended up buying more Vero Beach vacation points. I did a vacation point resale. While I was there, I just love Vero Beach. It just I know I repeat it a lot, but it's so relaxing, so fun. Disney's Vero Beach. So now I'm an owner in Vero Beach too. Got this. Well, we can talk about. We got to spend some time outside of Disney, doing some things outside,
Yeah.
like Legoland and Universal and things like that. But,
Excellent.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots more to talk about. I'm very happy to be home though. It was the first time. Also, this could be a whole nother episode that I drove down to, which
Right.
I thought was fabulous.
Ugh.
It really wasn't bad. Really
I am
wasn't
not a
bad.
driver. I drive to like a mile down the road to the 7-Eleven, and I'm just like, oh, make it end. So I can't imagine driving all the way to Florida.
I enjoyed it.
Wow.
It really wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad.
But you had a somewhat of a good time. I mean, let me put it this way, just for the last moment, Mike, would you recommend somebody going down right now, or do you think they should be waiting?
Wow. And it's funny you asked that because I have people asking me.
You canceled something.
We were going to go down for the 50th and we canceled.
Hmm.
We were going to get down September 30th and stay till October 4th. We canceled that trip. That probably answers your question.
Yeah.
I think that what I had said earlier holds a lot of water, and that is that if the resort doesn't open 100%, then your expectations are not going to be met. And let me just one final point. I feel the same way about Run Disney and the marathon weekend. If you can't open that up, and be like it was prior to COVID, then I don't think you should open it up. But that's
Well, we're going to see what they do with Wine and Dine, which is sooner. It's going to be in November. So
Are you signed up for that?
I'm not signed up for Wine and Dine. It was just too quick to make a decision. And plus, I still felt a little uncomfortable. It was funny when we were signing up for that, or you could sign up for that one, it seemed like things were ending. And then the Delta variant kicked in, and I'm still a little worried where things are going. So, yeah, well, I think that's going to be a whole other discussion, because Michelle and I are both signed up for the marathon weekend. And so, what about you, Michael? You signed up, or?
No, I'm not signed up.
Come on, Mike.
What
Take out that busted me for a ride.
I wanted to make one more point. That when we came back, we each got tested for COVID,
As did we.
and regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not, anyone who elects to go down there and be with all those people in Florida, where it's a really hot spot, it's really important to consider. I think it should be mandatory that when you come back, you really need to get tested to make sure you're not carrying something that you could give to somebody else.
Yeah, we immediately did as well, which is a smart move on everybody's part. So, and we were clean, we were all good. So, which was good news. But yeah, now's the time. You're not going to get the experience that you've gotten over the years. So if you're willing to understand that, and I have a friend who's down there right now, and he does not seem as concerned about the numbers as I am. But he's only there for like 5 days, so he's kind of getting in and getting out. But let's hope that it does improve. But so we'll talk about Run Disney in the future. We're going to talk more about our trip. We're going to talk about some of the changes. We also want to cover the Genie system that they're coming out with, the price changes on a lot of things, and see where we stand on those. So welcome back, and I hope you stick with us for the next few months as we discuss these hard-hitting subjects about our Disney vacations. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Mickey Miles and More. If you want to continue this conversation, though, join us on our Facebook page at Mickey Miles Podcast, or on Twitter at Mickey Miles Pod. For Dr. Michelle Scribner-McLean, Mike Scopa, I'm Chris Eliopoulos. We'll see you on the road and in the parks.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Mickey Miles and More podcast. For all of us here at the Mickey Miles and More podcast, this is Rick Gregg saying thanks for listening and all your support. And until next time, we'll see you on the road.